Hello everyone, welcome to Northland Voices. I'm Barbara Reyelts. One of the partners in the Northern Lights Express Rail Alliance has announced that they're pulling out of the group and taking their money with them. Some feel that could end the rail project linking Duluth and Minneapolis, but others say it's just a minor setback. Dave Anderson has details.
The government agencies joining together to build the Northern Lights Express Railway from the Twin Cities to the Twin Ports stretched the full 150 miles between the two destinations. On Tuesday, one of those agencies on the Twin Cities end of the line said it really was the end of the line. The Anoka County Board voted to withdraw from the commission.
As we're getting more and more involved in it, the numbers just weren't adding up.
Some members of the Anoka County Board said their pullout would result in a $10 million loss to the project. Northern Lights Express Technical Advisory Chairperson Ken Buehler says their numbers just aren't adding up.
But it's like $45,000. It's not $10 million.
Buehler reports most of the project's costs now come from federal and state money rather than counties like Anoka. Studies for the potential railway continue. Up next is an engineering study, and that money has already been allotted.
And it's almost underway. The requests for bids have been out there, and at one of the upcoming meetings, the board will decide on which proposal to accept, and that will move forward.
Former Duluth City Councilor Jeff Anderson supported the rail line during his time in office. He feels Anoka County's pullout is more symbolic than anything else, but hopes that symbolism isn't picked up by other communities in the Northern Lights Alliance.
So having one back out doesn't mean it's the end of this project, but it's certainly, we don't want it to have any sort of ripple effect.
Buehler says the project will press on.
As we get more federal and more state money, we need less local county money. And Anoka County's small amount probably won't be missed.
In Duluth, Dave Anderson, the Northlands News Center.
Joining us now are Ken Buehler, the Northern Lights Express Technical Advisory Chair, and St. Louis County Commissioner Steve O'Neill. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming in. Well, let's start by talking about what's going on with Anoka. The first thing that stands out for me is the disparity in their figures. They say $10 million, end of the line for your project. You say a few $1,000 a drop in the bucket. What's going on?
The actual amount that Anoka County has already paid to be a part of the Northern Lights Express Alliance between now and the end of the year was $46,313. They had already paid that, so they're walking away from an investment they already made. But where the $10 million comes from, Barbara, I don't know.
Okay, so it's not the end of the line as far as you're concerned.
I agree with Jeff Anderson. I think it's more symbolic. If you look, and the Commissioner and I were talking about this before we came on the air, it's a political thing.
It is, yeah.
Well, what do you mean? I know St. Louis County has been supportive all along of
right.
the passenger rail service. When you say it's political, what do you mean?
Well, Anoka County was great support, great support. And they had, in a recent election, a big shift. And unfortunately, the majority, by a 4-3, are very conservative and very anti-rail, anti-transportation.
That's unfortunate
yeah,
for your project.
That can shift again.
That 4-3 vote in Anoka County since the election, it's been rolled out a few other times. The Northern Lights Express is not the only thing in Anoka County that had a shift after the election and went down 4-3. It's a very conservative area. And as the Commissioner said, Anoka County was one of our primary founders. I mean, it was Commissioner Dan Earhart who, along with Commissioner Steve Rocker and people from then Congressman Oberstar's office, that kind of got this whole ball rolling. And so it's ironic that one of the first counties in is first and only, we hope, and I think that'll be the case, county out.
Well, yeah, because Jeff Anderson said there's a possibility of a domino effect. Are you concerned about that?
No. I think the other counties, cities, the tribal governments are very solid. No, I think, Anoka saw this big political shift, but, that can shift back.
They were part of the, what do you call them, Corridor Cities group. Tell us a little bit more about this group. Are these like partners all along the line, or?
Well, the Northern Lights Express Alliance is made up of all the counties along the line, minus Anoka, all the counties along right, all the counties along the line, as Commissioner O'Neill said. Also, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwa are a voting member and a supporter. They've been a supporter forever, but they've just now become a voting member because of a change in Minnesota law that allows them to. And then the two cities of the first class, which are Minneapolis and Duluth. And those are the voting partners that are managing the project.
Will the rail line, once it gets up and running, assuming it will it stop at all these various places along the way?
One of the things that we've dealt with from the very beginning is the fact that we didn't want to make promises. We have places that we're looking at and cities and towns that have done studies, but one of the problems you get into with high-speed rail, you know, back in the day when you were building your rail line, you'd go to every little community along the way and you'd play one against the other. And if I build the tracks this way, how much will you give me? If I build the tracks this way, how much more will I get? So that was quite a common thing for railroads to do. And back in the day, that was okay. But now in the era of high-speed rail, where the commute time, or in this case, the transit time from Duluth to Minneapolis, you want to compress that to be able to compete with the automobile. The less stops you make, the shorter the trip becomes. So we've been very careful, the managing partners, the county commissioners and city representatives and the representative of the tribe have been very careful about making these promises that we're going to stop every 20, 30 miles, because all of a sudden you've got a 3.5, 4-hour trip.
Yep.
But we are looking at the traditional stops that Amtrak made back in the day when they were running first the Arrowhead and then the North Star. And those were Duluth, Superior, occasionally Ascoff, Hinckley, and Cambridge, and then the Twin Cities. That's what we're kind of looking at. Ascoff is kind of becoming sandstone right now, and the Hinckley problem is either downtown or out at the casino, and right now the tribe is undertaking their second study to find out what that means and what that will cost.
What I want to know is, with Anoka County pulling out, is there going to be a penalty for them? I mean, St. Louis County is still contributing the same. What's the disadvantage to them pulling their funding?
Well, I mean, as Ken said, you know, we're talking about $46,000. You know, I mean, if we're to state of the case, we'd all have to chip in a little bit more. But you know, there's a lot of members. You know, 46,000 split among a number of members is a small amount.
So is there no disincentive to stop paying their money to the other partners along the way if they're not going to get any punishment or any penalty for pulling their money?
Well, they've already paid for the year in full.
Okay.
So for this year, we've already got Anoka County's money. Thank you very much, Anoka County. We've already got that cash. Going forward into next year is where you'll take a look at it. But as I said in that clip with Dave Anderson's report, as we get more state and more federal money into this, Barbara, we need less and less participation from our partners. And actually, I'm working on the budget for right now for next year. It will be presented at our meeting next week in Hinckley, and that budget is a flat budget, and it's just $46,313 lower than it was last year.
All right, well, we need to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we'll take a closer look at the significant steps that the project has taken recently, thanks to some federal funding, so stay with us. The Northern Lights Express high-speed rail line between Minneapolis and Duluth took a major step forward a year ago when it received $5 million from the federal government. Jenna Pike tells us how that financial support has been used to advance the project.
Only 22 of about 100 rail projects in the U.S. were able to get a chunk of the $2 billion of federal high-speed rail funds up for grabs. The U.S. Transportation Secretary said Minnesota's application was solid.
It's because of the senator's leadership and other people in the state.
We've been doing all our homework and dotting our I's and crossing our T's with the Federal Rail Administration. This project has been one of the leading projects in the state going back to the Bush administration.
Senator Klobuchar said with rail projects already happening in the Twin Cities, the Northern Lights Express will extend needed service to greater Minnesota.
Whether it is our companies all over our state or our great work with tourism you're doing in Duluth.
She sees it as Minnesota staying ahead.
If you look how Minnesota's been doing better than the rest of the country because of our belief in progress, our belief in the future.
President Obama and Vice President Biden are pushing for more rails nationwide.
They're going to be the rail men of the 21st century, and we're on our way to high-speed rail in America.
While opponents of the project question how many passengers the trains will see, Secretary LaHood says if you build it, they will come. In Duluth, Jenna Pike, Northland's News Center.
The Obama administration's plan is to have 80% of America connected with high-speed passenger rail service in 25 years. And we're talking with some of those working to help reach that goal in Minnesota. Again, gentlemen, thanks for coming in. So this federal grant that we were able to get, and so few in the country, why did ours qualify?
There was two reasons for that. One is a couple of years ago, the route between Minneapolis and Duluth was identified nationally by a group of states working with the federal government as a fifth priority route. In other words, they had ranked them by priority and by years. And we were number 5 on that list.
So we made the cut.
So we made the cut. The other thing was there has been spending in high-speed rail, and those that were above us, like the Wolverine route from Chicago going east, and then the Chicago to New Orleans, or to Chicago to St. Louis, those have been completed now and are at the high-speed status. So we've moved up on the list, and we were already in the top 5 on that short list. So those two things came together for us.
We talked about you have some pretty high-profile backing. I mean, after all, you've got St. Louis County and Steve O'Neill here. Is it a consensus in the county that has been supporting the high-speed rail all along?
The large majority of the county board has been solidly supported. The mayor and the city council, the large majority of the city council have been solidly supported, really all along, yes. And I think, you know, a lot of public support, a lot of support from our neighbors, you know, throughout northeastern Minnesota, other counties. So, you know, I feel like people absolutely want to see this happen. And
why do you think, Steve? Why is it so important that we get this high-speed rail connection? Are we talking, you know, stopping, reducing number of cars, or where does your support come from?
I think the support comes in a few places. One, that people realize that this will be a great economic engine for Duluth and for northeastern Minnesota, that it will bring lots of tourists our way. It'll bring lots of business people our way. That, you know, I think sometimes when I talk to people, they say, well, you know, how many times will people from Duluth go to Minneapolis? Well, that's true. You know, we'll go some of us will go a number of times, but, you know, there are over 16 million people in the metro area from Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, and the Twin Cities. 16 million plus folks. They want to come here. They don't want to drive, particularly older people. You know, we're graying, right? You know,
Are you looking at me?
No, I'm not. I'm looking at Ken and I.
Oh,
but you know, a lot of those folks don't want to drive. They would love to get on a fast train and get to Duluth and rent a car, take a bus, you know, take a cab. So
you're saying the economy will see a boost from this train.
Absolutely.
Congressman Kravac, Ken, has said he says he's a fiscal conservative, and this is a